for it began with a decision few believed the palace would ever make. Behind closed doors, Prince William reportedly approved a move that sent shockwaves through royal circles, one that directly affected Queen Camilla's family. At first, officials dismissed the reports as speculation. But when invitations were finalized and key names were missing, whispers turned into confirmation. Something extraordinary had happened, and it threatened to reopen divisions many believed had been buried. Before we go deeper into what this really means for the royal family, make sure to subscribe so you don't miss a single update. The controversy did not emerge overnight. It began quietly as preparations accelerated for one of the most significant coronation-related events in recent royal memory. Palace staff worked tirelessly behind the scenes, coordinating guest lists, reviewing protocol, and ensuring every detail reflected the dignity of the crown. Yet amid the usual routines of royal planning, several senior aides reportedly noticed something unusual. Names that many assumed would automatically appear on the final guest list were nowhere to be found. At first, the discrepancy was treated as a simple administrative oversight. Mistakes happen, even within the carefully controlled machinery of the monarchy. But as additional drafts circulated among trusted officials, a troubling pattern began to emerge. The missing names reportedly belonged to members of Queen Camilla's family. That discovery immediately raised eyebrows among palace insiders. For years, the monarchy had carefully balanced tradition with modern realities, attempting to navigate the complex relationships that came with blended families and evolving public expectations. Excluding relatives so closely connected to the Queen was not a routine decision. It was a move loaded with symbolism, one that carried implications far beyond a single event. As word quietly spread through royal corridors, questions multiplied faster than answers. Who had made the decision? Why now? And perhaps most importantly, what message was the palace trying to send? Officially, there was silence. Palace representatives declined to address the growing rumors, offering neither confirmation nor denial. That refusal only intensified the speculation. Royal observers noted that when the palace truly wished to shut down a false story, it often moved quickly and decisively. This time was different. The absence of a firm response created a vacuum, and into that vacuum poured countless theories. Some suggested it was merely a logistical adjustment. Others believed it reflected a deeper shift in royal priorities. Meanwhile, insiders allegedly described an atmosphere of unusual tension, with conversations becoming increasingly guarded and meetings taking place behind tightly closed doors. Attention soon turned toward Prince William. Reports suggested that the future king had played a direct role in reviewing and approving the final arrangements. If true, the implications were enormous. William had spent years preparing for the responsibilities that awaited him, gradually expanding his influence within royal operations while presenting a public image of stability and continuity. Yet this reported decision hinted at something more assertive. It suggested a leader willing to make difficult choices, even when those choices risked creating discomfort within the family itself. To supporters, it demonstrated strength and clarity. To critics, it raised concerns about emerging divisions at the highest levels of the monarchy. As days passed, the whispers grew louder. Royal insiders claimed the tension surrounding Camilla's family had not appeared suddenly, but had been building quietly for months. Small disagreements, differing visions for the future, and unresolved frustrations allegedly created an undercurrent that few outsiders could see. What seemed like a single guest list controversy may have been the visible result of a much longer struggle unfolding beneath the surface. The public, sensing that something significant was happening, became increasingly fascinated. Every new report generated fresh debate. Every unanswered question deepened the mystery. Then came the moment when speculation began transforming into apparent confirmation. Sources close to the situation suggested that the exclusions were not accidental and were unlikely to be reversed. That revelation sent another wave of shock through royal watchers, many of whom understood that guest lists within the monarchy are rarely just about attendance. They are statements, signals, carefully crafted reflections of status, influence, and belonging. And if certain individuals had indeed been left off intentionally, the decision carried a meaning far greater than anyone initially realized. The deeper story was only beginning to emerge, and those closest to the palace knew that the real conflict had yet to reveal itself. But removing names from a guest list was only the surface of a much deeper struggle unfolding behind palace walls. This was never just another royal gathering. The event carried enormous symbolic weight, representing continuity, legitimacy, and the future direction of the monarchy itself. Every invitation carried meaning. Every absence carried even more. As speculation surrounding the missing names intensified, royal observers began focusing on the event at the center of the controversy. This was not a routine reception, a seasonal celebration, or a ceremonial appearance designed merely to satisfy tradition. It was a gathering deeply connected to the legacy of the crown itself, one intended to reinforce the image of stability and unity that the monarchy has spent generations protecting. Within royal circles, such occasions are often viewed as far more than social functions. They serve as public declarations about who belongs within the institution's inner orbit and who remains outside its most important circles. That reality is precisely why the reported exclusions sparked such intense discussion. For decades, coronation celebrations have carried a unique significance. They are linked not only to a reigning monarch, but also to the enduring story of the royal family itself. Every guest list becomes a reflection of priorities. Every seating arrangement carries subtle messages. Every invitation is interpreted as a sign of trust, recognition, and acceptance. In many ways, attendance at these events functions as an unofficial measure of status within the wider royal world. Being present symbolizes inclusion. Being absent can raise uncomfortable questions that linger long after the event has ended. That is why expectations surrounding Queen Camilla's family were so high. Many assumed that relatives connected to the Queen would naturally be included in celebrations of such importance. After all, Camilla had spent years gradually securing her place within the institution. The difficult public debates that once surrounded her role had largely faded into the background. Her position beside the king was now firmly established, and many believed that stability had finally been achieved. Yet beneath that appearance of calm, reports suggest that deeper tensions may have continued to exist, hidden beneath carefully maintained public unity. The timing made the situation even more sensitive. The monarchy has spent recent years navigating an extraordinary series of challenges, controversies, and public debates. Questions about succession, modernization, family disputes, and the future direction of the institution have repeatedly dominated headlines. In such an environment, image matters more than ever. Every decision is scrutinized, every symbolic gesture is dissected. Palace officials understand this reality better than anyone, which is why the reported guest list changes attracted immediate attention. Observers struggled to believe that such a significant decision could have occurred without deliberate consideration. Under normal circumstances, palace protocol follows established patterns when it comes to family representation. While distinctions exist between working royals and extended relatives, major celebrations often seek to balance tradition with family inclusion. The process is designed to minimize unnecessary controversy while preserving institutional priorities. Yet insiders reportedly noticed that this year felt different. The approach is stricter. The boundaries appeared firmer. Decisions that might once have been handled with flexibility now seemed guided by a more disciplined philosophy. That perception fueled growing speculation that something larger was taking shape behind the scenes. As discussions intensified, some royal commentators began suggesting that the guest list reflected a broader shift within the monarchy itself. Rather than focusing solely on family connections, the emphasis appeared increasingly centered on official roles, direct responsibilities, and the future structure of the institution. If true, that would represent a significant evolution in how royal events were being organized. It would also help explain why certain expectations had suddenly collided with a new reality. What many viewed as a personal slight may actually have been part of a larger effort to redefine priorities for the years ahead. Still, for those following the story, one question continued to overshadow all others. Decisions of this magnitude rarely emerge without leadership. Someone had approved the final arrangements. Someone had accepted the risks. Someone had determined that the potential fallout was worth enduring. And as reports continued to circulate, the focus of public curiosity began narrowing toward a single figure whose influence within the monarchy seemed to be growing with each passing year. As questions mounted about the missing invitations, attention quickly shifted to the man believed to be behind the decision. For years, Prince William has been viewed as the future of a modern monarchy. But according to insiders, this decision revealed something else: a determination to protect what he sees as the institution's core identity, no matter how uncomfortable the consequences. As the controversy surrounding the missing invitations continued to dominate royal conversations, attention increasingly focused on Prince William. The future king had spent much of his public life cultivating an image of stability, patience, and careful leadership. He rarely appeared eager to provoke conflict, preferring instead to project calm during periods of uncertainty. Yet this situation felt different. The reported exclusions were not being interpreted as an accidental oversight or a minor administrative adjustment. To many observers, they looked like the result of a deliberate choice. And if that interpretation was correct, it suggested that William was beginning to exercise his growing authority in ways that carried profound consequences for the future shape of the monarchy. Over recent years, William's influence inside palace operations has reportedly expanded significantly. As responsibilities increased and public expectations grew, so too did his involvement in decisions affecting the institution's long-term direction. Those close to royal affairs often describe a gradual transition taking place behind the scenes, one in which William's vision has begun carrying greater weight within important discussions. While King Charles remains the monarch, many believe preparations for the next era are already quietly underway. Against that backdrop, the guest list controversy suddenly appeared less like an isolated incident and more like evidence of a broader strategy taking shape. According to royal insiders, one of William's greatest concerns has been maintaining a clear distinction between those who actively serve the institution and those who merely exist within its wider orbit. This philosophy has reportedly become increasingly important as the monarchy attempts to adapt to changing public expectations. At a time when scrutiny is intense and every decision faces examination, questions about relevance, accountability, and purpose have become impossible to ignore. Supporters of this approach argue that a smaller, more focused monarchy is necessary for long-term stability. Critics, however, worry that such decisions risk creating unnecessary tensions within the royal family itself. The debate became especially sensitive when discussions reportedly turned toward non-working royal involvement. While family connections remain important, there has been growing speculation that future policies may place greater emphasis on official duties rather than personal relationships. If true, that shift would represent a significant change in how inclusion is determined at major royal occasions. For some, it reflects practical modernization. For others, it feels like a painful narrowing of traditions that once prioritized family unity alongside institutional responsibility. Either way, the reported guest list changes seem to embody that larger conflict. Behind closed doors, rumors of disagreements allegedly began circulating among senior figures connected to palace operations. Different factions were said to hold different views regarding who should be prioritized at events carrying major symbolic significance. Some reportedly favored broader representation, believing it would promote harmony and avoid unnecessary controversy. Others allegedly argued that the focus should remain firmly on individuals directly connected to the monarchy's future. These competing perspectives created an atmosphere of quiet tension, one that had apparently been building long before the invitations became public discussion. At the center of those debates stood William's reported emphasis on direct royal lineage. To his supporters, this was not about exclusion, but about clarity. They viewed it as an effort to reinforce the institution's purpose, during a period of immense transition. To them, preserving focus on the line of succession and those carrying official responsibilities represented a necessary step toward safeguarding the monarchy's future. Yet even among experienced courtiers, reactions appeared mixed. Some reportedly admired the decisiveness being displayed. Others worried about the potential fallout, fearing that symbolic decisions often create consequences far beyond their original intention. As the story continued gaining momentum, speculation expanded beyond the immediate controversy. Commentators began asking whether the guest list decision represented a preview of future royal policies. Was this merely a single judgment call tied to one event? Or was it evidence of a more disciplined and streamlined monarchy, emerging under William's influence? The question lingered because no clear answer arrived. Instead, silence persisted, allowing uncertainty to grow and interpretations to multiply. With every passing day, the focus on William intensified, and so did the stakes surrounding the unfolding drama. Yet if William believed the matter would quietly disappear, the reaction from Camilla's circle suggested otherwise. Behind the public smiles and carefully controlled appearances, reports suggest deep frustration was brewing. For supporters of Queen Camilla, the exclusions felt personal and perhaps even deliberate. As Prince William's reported role in the controversy became the focus of public discussion, another story was beginning to unfold behind the scenes. While attention centered on questions of protocol, modernization, and royal priorities, those closest to Queen Camilla were reportedly dealing with something far more emotional. For them, the issue was no longer simply about invitations or attendance. It had become a matter of recognition, belonging, and status within an institution that places enormous importance on symbolism. The deeper the story traveled into royal circles, the more it appeared that hurt feelings and quiet frustrations were beginning to surface. According to reports, disappointment among members of Camilla's family grew rapidly as the reality of the situation became harder to dismiss. What initially seemed like an unlikely rumor gradually transformed into a subject of serious discussion. Those who expected inclusion at such a significant event allegedly found themselves confronting a very different outcome. For individuals connected to the Queen, the reported exclusions were interpreted by some not merely as logistical decisions, but as signals. And in royal life, signals often carry lasting consequences. A missing invitation can trigger questions that linger long after the event itself has passed. The emotional weight of that possibility reportedly fueled concerns about standing within royal circles. For years, efforts had been made to carefully balance the complex dynamics created by a modern blended royal family. It was never a simple task. Relationships had evolved over time, public perceptions had shifted, and the institution itself had worked to project an image of stability. Yet, maintaining that balance required constant effort. Every appearance, every event, and every gesture carried significance. When one piece of that balance appeared disturbed, it inevitably raised fears about what it might mean for the larger picture. Some insiders alleged that private conversations became increasingly tense as the controversy expanded. While no official comments emerged, reports suggested frustration was being expressed behind closed doors. Questions reportedly circulated about fairness, priorities, and the motivations behind the decisions. Were these choices simply administrative? Were they connected to a broader vision for the monarchy? Or did they reflect something more personal? The absence of clear answers allowed uncertainty to grow, and uncertainty has a way of magnifying every concern. In royal circles, silence can often speak louder than words. As these discussions intensified, a growing perception of division began taking shape. Whether accurate or not, the narrative of competing factions started gaining traction among commentators and observers. Some framed the situation as evidence of an emerging power shift. Others described it as the inevitable consequence of a monarchy trying to redefine itself for a new era. Either way, the idea of unity became increasingly difficult to maintain. The more speculation spread, the more people searched for signs that deeper disagreements existed beneath the surface. The media quickly seized upon the story. What had started as whispers among royal insiders evolved into a topic generating widespread fascination. Analysts debated possible motives. Commentators examined every available detail. Supporters of different figures within the royal family offered competing interpretations. With each new report, public curiosity intensified. The controversy had become larger than a guest list. It was now being viewed as a test of influence, authority, and the future direction of the monarchy itself. That growing attention inevitably led to another question, one perhaps more significant than any discussion about invitations. Who truly held influence inside the palace? Was the decision a reflection of William's increasingly powerful position? Did it signal a broader institutional shift, or was it evidence of competing visions quietly battling for control of the monarchy's future? The answers remained elusive, hidden behind layers of protocol and carefully managed silence. Yet the intensity of the reactions suggested that many believed something larger was at stake. And as emotions continued rising and theories multiplied, a surprising possibility began emerging from conversations among royal insiders. Some suggested the roots of this controversy stretched much further back than anyone initially realized. What appeared to be a sudden dispute may actually have been the latest chapter in a story that had been unfolding quietly for months, perhaps even years, long before a single invitation was drafted. But as emotions intensified, insiders began revealing that this controversy may have started long before the invitations were ever printed. According to royal watchers, the guest list dispute was merely the latest chapter in a much larger power struggle. What appeared to be a single decision may actually have been the result of months of quiet disagreements. As speculation surrounding the controversy deepened, a new narrative began emerging from behind palace walls. The missing invitations were no longer being discussed as an isolated incident. Instead, they were increasingly viewed as a symptom of something much larger, an ongoing struggle over what the monarchy should become in the years ahead. For those following every twist and turn of royal affairs, the dispute seemed to reveal a growing clash between competing visions, competing priorities, and perhaps even competing ideas about who should shape the institution's future. The guest list had become the spark, but the fire may have been burning long before anyone noticed the smoke. Reports from royal insiders suggested that differing visions for the monarchy had been quietly developing for some time. On one side stood those who favored continuity, believing the institution should preserve familiar traditions and maintain broad family inclusion whenever possible. On the other side were voices reportedly advocating a more focused approach, one centered on efficiency, accountability, and a clearer definition of who represented the crown. Neither perspective was necessarily new. Yet, as the monarchy entered a period of significant transition, those differences appeared to become increasingly difficult to ignore. At the center of this discussion stood Prince William. As heir to the throne, his influence has reportedly expanded with every passing year. While his public role remains carefully measured, many observers believe his long-term vision for the monarchy is already beginning to shape important decisions. According to those familiar with palace dynamics, William's focus has increasingly turned toward the next generation. The future, not the past, appears to dominate his thinking. Supporters describe this as responsible leadership. Critics view it as an approach that risks unsettling established relationships. Either way, the direction seems clear. The institution is being prepared not only for tomorrow, but for decades beyond. Alongside William, the growing influence of Catherine and the Wales household has become impossible to overlook. Over recent years, Catherine's position within the royal family has strengthened considerably. Her popularity, stability, and dedication have elevated her standing both inside and outside palace circles. Together, William and Catherine increasingly represent the future face of the monarchy. That reality has reportedly shifted internal dynamics, creating new centers of influence while subtly changing the balance of power. Every major decision now carries an added layer of significance because many believe it reflects not only present priorities but future leadership as well. Behind the scenes, discussions about royal priorities allegedly became more frequent as advisors examined how the institution should navigate a changing world. Public trust, relevance, and accountability were reportedly recurring themes. The monarchy remains one of the most scrutinized institutions on Earth, and every decision is judged through the lens of public perception. In that environment, questions about representation carry enormous weight. Who attends? Who is included? Who remains at the center of the story? These questions are never purely ceremonial. They help define how the monarchy is understood by millions. Concerns over public image reportedly intensified those debates. Some advisors allegedly argued that a more streamlined approach would strengthen the institution's credibility. Others warned that such decisions could create unnecessary controversy and deepen perceptions of division. The result, according to reports, was a growing divide among senior figures tasked with protecting the monarchy's stability. Different camps emerged. Different priorities competed for influence. And while those disagreements may have remained largely hidden from public view, the guest list controversy suddenly brought them into the spotlight. What made the situation especially remarkable was how quickly it became impossible to contain. What began as whispers among insiders evolved into a story dominating headlines, social discussions, and royal commentary. Every new report seemed to uncover another layer of complexity. Every unanswered question generated fresh speculation. The controversy was no longer about a handful of invitations. It had become a debate about power, succession, influence, and the future identity of the monarchy itself. The palace, accustomed to managing difficult stories, now faced a situation that seemed to grow larger with each passing day. And as officials reportedly worked behind the scenes to control the narrative and prevent further escalation, an unexpected development began taking shape. The public, rather than moving on, became increasingly engaged. What started as palace intrigue was transforming into something far broader, and the reaction that followed would create an entirely new challenge for those at the center of the storm. As the palace scrambled to contain the fallout, a surprising response began emerging from the public. Once the story reached the public, reactions came fast and fiercely. Supporters and critics alike rushed to interpret what the decision really meant for the future of the royal family. What had begun as a palace controversy suddenly transformed into a national conversation. The moment reports about the missing invitations spread beyond royal circles, the response was immediate and intense. Social media platforms erupted with debate, comment sections filled with competing theories. Supporters, critics, commentators, and casual observers all seemed determined to answer the same question. What exactly was this decision supposed to mean? The fascination was impossible to ignore because the controversy touched on something larger than a single event. It raised questions about power, loyalty, tradition, and the direction of one of the world's most recognizable institutions. Within hours, discussions were unfolding across countless online communities. Some voices argued that Prince William had demonstrated decisive leadership at a critical moment. To them, the reported exclusions reflected a willingness to place the institution above personal relationships. They viewed the decision as evidence of a future monarch prepared to make difficult choices, even when those choices carried emotional consequences. Supporters praised what they saw as clarity and discipline. They argued that modern leadership often requires uncomfortable decisions, particularly when the future of an institution is involved. Yet not everyone shared that perspective. Critics quickly challenged the message they believed the decision was sending. For them, the controversy appeared to raise troublesome questions about inclusion and unity within the royal family. If the reports were accurate, some wondered whether the monarchy risked creating unnecessary divisions during a period when public confidence and stability remained especially important. Others questioned whether symbolic gestures of exclusion could ultimately create more problems than they solved. These competing interpretations fueled even more debate, ensuring that the story remained firmly in the spotlight. Royal commentators soon entered the discussion, bringing their own analysis and theories. Some suggested the controversy reflected broader efforts to redefine the monarchy's future. Others believed it exposed unresolved tensions that had been quietly developing for years. Every commentator seemed to see a different piece of the puzzle. Some focused on William's growing authority. Others examined Camilla's position within the family. A few even argued that the dispute represented a turning point, one that future historians might look back on as evidence of a significant shift in royal priorities. As public interest intensified, comparisons to previous royal disputes inevitably emerged. Observers recalled earlier moments when family disagreements spilled into public view, generating similar waves of fascination and speculation. While every situation carried its own unique circumstances, the comparison served to remind people how quickly private tensions can become matters of public debate. The monarchy has always relied on carefully managed appearances, but history repeatedly demonstrates that moments of uncertainty attract enormous attention. This controversy seemed to follow that familiar pattern, growing larger with every new discussion. The media responded accordingly. News outlets, commentators, and royal analysts examined every angle of the story. Reports were dissected, timelines were reviewed, alleged motives were debated endlessly. What made the situation especially compelling was the absence of definitive answers. Without clear explanations, the public was left to interpret events through fragments of information and competing narratives. The resulting uncertainty only deepened interest. People wanted to know what had happened, why it had happened, and what it revealed about the relationships at the center of the monarchy. At the same time, curiosity about future family dynamics reached new levels. The controversy encouraged broader questions about succession, influence, and the next chapter of royal leadership. If this decision truly reflected changing priorities, what other changes might follow? Would future events follow a similar pattern? Would the balance of influence continue shifting toward William and Catherine? These questions lingered because they touched on the future. And the future remains one of the most powerful sources of intrigue within any royal story. The longer the debate continued, the clearer it became that the controversy was no longer confined to palace walls. Public opinion had become part of the story itself. Every reaction added pressure. Every headline increased scrutiny. Every discussion intensified expectations for answers that still had not arrived. And while the public remained consumed by theories, arguments, and predictions, those inside the palace reportedly faced a far more urgent concern. The storm was no longer about what had happened. The real challenge now centered on what would happen next. But while the public debated motives and consequences, the palace faced an even bigger challenge: what comes next. The controversy may ultimately be remembered for more than a guest list. Many observers believe it signaled a changing balance of power inside the monarchy, one increasingly shaped by William's vision. As the public debate continued and the immediate shock of the controversy began to fade, attention gradually shifted toward a much larger question. What if the story was never really about invitations at all? What if the missing names, the growing tensions, and the intense reactions were merely symptoms of a deeper transformation already underway inside the monarchy? For many royal observers, that possibility became increasingly difficult to ignore. The dispute appeared to reveal something significant about the future and about the people preparing to shape it. For years, Prince William's role has been evolving steadily. What once seemed like a distant responsibility now feels much closer. With every major appearance, every important decision, and every new challenge facing the royal family, his influence appears to grow. The guest list controversy only reinforced that perception. Whether supporters agreed with the reported decision or not, many viewed it as evidence that William is no longer simply preparing for future leadership. He is already helping define the institution's direction. That realization has changed how many people interpret events unfolding within palace walls. One theme repeatedly emerged from discussions surrounding the controversy: the possibility of a more streamlined monarchy. For years, royal commentators have speculated about what such a future might look like. The idea centers on a smaller institution, one focused more clearly on those carrying official responsibilities and less on maintaining broader layers of representation. Supporters argue that this approach reflects modern realities and public expectations. Critics worry that it could create emotional distance within the wider royal family. Yet, regardless of where opinions fall, the conversation itself reveals how much the monarchy continues to evolve. That evolution naturally raises questions about the future role of extended family members. Traditionally, royal life has balanced institutional duty with family connections. However, if priorities continue shifting toward a more focused structure, some relationships may be redefined in ways that previous generations never experienced. For those connected to the monarchy but not directly involved in its daily responsibilities, uncertainty becomes unavoidable. The controversy highlighted that reality in dramatic fashion, forcing many to consider how future decisions might reshape long-established expectations. Alongside William's growing authority stands another influential figure whose presence continues to expand: Catherine. Over the years, she has transformed from a newcomer navigating intense public scrutiny into one of the most respected figures within the royal family. Her popularity, consistency, and commitment have strengthened her position considerably. Increasingly, William and Catherine are viewed not simply as individuals, but as a partnership representing the monarchy's future. Their influence extends beyond public appearances. Many observers believe their values and priorities are already shaping important conversations behind the scenes, preparing the institution for the challenges that lie ahead. That preparation carries special significance because an eventual transition of power remains one of the defining realities facing the monarchy. While the timing remains uncertain, discussions about the future have become increasingly important. Every major decision is now viewed through the lens of succession. Every controversy is examined for clues about what the next era may bring. The guest list dispute became part of that larger conversation because it appeared to offer a glimpse into how future leadership might approach difficult choices. Public expectations have evolved as well. Many people now expect greater transparency, clearer accountability, and a stronger sense of purpose from long-standing institutions. The monarchy exists within that reality, whether it welcomes it or not. As a result, decisions that might once have passed quietly now generate intense scrutiny. The controversy demonstrated just how closely people are watching and how eager they are to understand the forces shaping the crown's future. Yet perhaps the most important consequence lies in what cannot yet be measured. Relationships within the royal family have always been complex, shaped by history, duty, loyalty, and personal emotion. Decisions made today can influence those relationships for years to come. Whether this controversy ultimately strengthens certain alliances or deepens existing tensions remains unclear. What is clear is that the story revealed a monarchy standing at a crossroads, balancing tradition against transformation while preparing for an uncertain future. And as the dust slowly settled, one final question remained unanswered. In royal history, some moments seem small when they happen, only to reveal their true significance years later. This may prove to be one of those moments, a decision that exposed hidden tensions, redefined loyalties, and offered a glimpse into the monarchy's future. As the controversies slowly moved from breaking headlines into broader reflection, many observers began viewing the story through a different lens. The debate was no longer centered solely on missing invitations or reported exclusions. Instead, attention turned toward what the entire episode revealed about the state of the monarchy itself. Looking back, the decision appeared deceptively simple on the surface. A few names reportedly left off a guest list, a few unexpected absences. Yet beneath that seemingly ordinary development lay a chain of consequences that touched nearly every major theme shaping the royal family's future. Power, loyalty, tradition, change. All of them collided within a single controversy that few could have predicted would grow so large. The reported exclusion of members connected to Queen Camilla's family became the moment that triggered a much wider conversation. For supporters of Camilla, the decision felt deeply symbolic. Some viewed it as a sign that long-standing efforts to balance family relationships with institutional priorities were becoming increasingly difficult. Others feared it suggested a shift in how influence and recognition were being measured within royal circles. Whether those concerns were justified or not, the emotional impact was undeniable. What started as disappointment evolved into questions about belonging, status, and the future place of extended family members within an increasingly focused monarchy. At the same time, the controversy highlighted something equally significant: Prince William's growing authority. Throughout the story, his name repeatedly emerged as the figure most closely associated with the reported decisions. That alone revealed how much his position has evolved. No longer seen simply as the heir waiting for a distant future, William increasingly appears to many observers as a leader already shaping the institution's direction. Every major development seemed to reinforce that perception. Supporters interpreted it as evidence of strength and preparedness. Critics questioned whether such authority could create new tensions. Yet, regardless of opinion, one conclusion became difficult to avoid. William's influence is becoming impossible to separate from conversations about the monarchy's future. The broader message surrounding the controversy may ultimately prove even more important than the immediate dispute itself. Many analysts believe the episode reflected an institution wrestling with fundamental questions about identity and purpose. What should the monarchy prioritize in the years ahead? Tradition or modernization? Broad inclusion or streamlined representation? Family connections or official responsibility? These questions have existed for years, but this controversy forced them into public view. Suddenly, abstract debates became real. Decisions once discussed privately were being examined openly by millions. Despite all the discussion, mysteries remain unresolved. Questions continue surrounding the internal dynamics that influence the reported decisions. Were the exclusions part of a larger strategic vision? Were they connected to changing priorities within palace operations? Or were they simply the result of circumstances that outsiders still do not fully understand? The absence of definitive answers has ensured that fascination with the story continues. Sometimes the most powerful royal narratives are not driven by certainty, but by uncertainty. The unanswered questions often become the stories people remember longest. Looking further ahead, the legacy implications are impossible to ignore. Future generations may eventually view this episode as an early signal of broader changes taking place within the monarchy. If William and Catherine continue shaping the institution according to the principles many believe they support, then moments like this may be remembered as milestones rather than isolated controversies. The decisions made today have the potential to influence relationships, traditions, and expectations for years to come. That reality gives the story a significance extending far beyond the event that first sparked public attention. And perhaps that is why the controversy remains so compelling. It is not merely a story about who attended an event or who did not. It is a story about transition, about an institution standing between its past and its future, about leaders making choices under extraordinary scrutiny, and about a family navigating challenges while carrying the weight of centuries of history. The headlines will eventually fade, the debates will quiet, and new stories will emerge. Yet the questions raised by this moment may continue echoing long after the controversy itself has passed. Because in the House of Windsor, the most powerful statements are often made not through words, but through who is invited and who is left behind. Thanks for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we will see you in next one.